Well, good morning. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Patriot Radio News Hour. This is your substitute teacher, Glen Biddle, sitting in for Double J and Eric, who are both under the weather. And when I say under the weather, I mean they are under the weather. And you can read into that however you want to read into it, but they are under the weather. They're sick. Okay, Jason, also in Colorado, was sick last week. He's still recovering. So I am the fourth in line to cover the show. Now, that doesn't mean I'm the fourth best person to be on the show, but like if you look at it baseball wise, that's called the cleanup hitter. That guy's usually a pretty good hitter, right? Or in the military, we have what's called the strategic triad. You've got the nuclear capable bombers, you've got the submarine missiles, and you've got the actual land-based missiles, and we kind of have that here at Patriot Trading Group. So in Arizona, let's say that they are the bomber crew, and then in Colorado, well, that's where all the land-based missiles are, and then here in Maryland, where I am, that's the submarines, because we've got the Naval Academy here, right? So if one of those things is knocked out, the other two or other one can take over and run the show. So that's what I'm doing today. So basically, Arizona and Colorado have been taken out, kind of figuratively speaking, and Maryland is still up and running. So that's me. Okay. Now, obviously, if you've ever listened to me cover, I'm a teacher. So in the summertime, I've got plenty of time to cover the show. I'm glad to do it. I love doing it. It's absolutely fun. This morning, though, it was like, hey, can you do the show? I'm like, absolutely. I'll figure it out. And I've got a million things to talk about today. I'm going to get a little political today, and I'm also going to put my history teacher hat on and my government teacher. Now, I've taught everything from 6th grade up to 12th grade, whether it's geography, economics, personal finance, U.S. history, world history, you name it. My favorite's probably American government. Now, right now, I'm teaching 8th grade U.S. history. Absolutely love it. We start at the founding of America, and we go all the way up to the end of the Civil War and Reconstruction. I don't quite frankly know what I'm going to be able to teach next year, what will be deemed appropriate or inappropriate, quite frankly. It's absolutely ridiculous what's going on in our country as far as tearing statues down. As a history teacher, it just kills me to see this, because most of these people that are running around tearing down statues have no idea of the history behind the statues. There was a statue they took down in Wisconsin. It was a guy that he was an abolitionist. But since he looked like an old white male, they went and and the guy fought for the Union Army. They tore the statue down. They want to tear down the Lincoln Emancipation statue, and they just have no idea what they're doing. And the great thing is, we're going to talk about definitions today of actual political terms. So if you see someone and they want to call you a fascist, ask them, quite frankly, what is a fascist? I guarantee you they won't be able to give you the answer. They're just going to say, well, you're one. I know you are. You just look like one. You got a Trump hat on. You're a fascist. Oh, really? What does fascist mean? I don't know, but you're one. Meanwhile, they have a Che shirt on, Che Guevara, right? And that guy, if they knew the history of that dude, they would never, ever wear his shirt, ever. But who knows? So it's a very tangled web that they're in. And just to give you a little hint of what we're going to talk about today, the first thing we're going to talk about, probably in the second segment, there's 4 different topics that I've been seeing happen in this country. So one, we've got hypocrisy, okay, just hypocritical crap that's going on. We're also being lied to, okay, and a lot of us are just accepting the lie. We're just going on with it because some people are just too stupid to figure it out, or they're just too busy to figure it out. They can't think for themselves. That's not this audience, by the way. You guys are critical thinkers. You get it. The debt, which is the elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about, and they're trying to kick that can down the road. Now, if you kick the debt can down the road right now, it would break your foot. It's that big. Okay? No doubt about that. And then there's what I call, in air quotes, the system. The system. Do you have confidence in the system anymore? You know, is the system working for you? Is the system working in America? Is one group of people getting away with stuff that you and I would be probably put in jail over? You know, that system, is it fair? Is it working for everyone? Because quite frankly, I'm not sure if it is. Okay, but we are a gold and silver company. Okay, you can reach us at 800-951-0592. Now, the one thing this week is the Arizona office is going to be closed this week, so no walk-ins. You can contact us up at the Colorado station. I can get you that number here in a second. But you can go to our website, allamericangold.com. That's still up and running. 1360khnc.com is our radio station up in Colorado on the Front Range. Also, we're also broadcasting on 1010 Family Values Radio there in Arizona. And so we're getting the word out, no doubt about that. And very exciting times that we're living in. I think Sun Tzu said that. May you live in interesting times. And quite frankly, we are living in very interesting times. Whether it's good interesting or bad interesting is a whole other story, but it's definitely interesting. There's not a bit of lack for news right now if you're a news junkie like most of us are. Now, I want to touch on the markets real quick. The U.S. markets are doing, well, remarkably pretty good in a country that's burning down around us. The Dow is up about 389 points. The NASDAQ's up about 82 points. S&P's up 30. Gold is sitting at $1,783, up about $3 today. Oil is sitting at $39 a barrel, up about 50 cents. Now, you've noticed that gas prices have kind of spiked. That's lately. In my neck of the woods, it's about $2.19 a gallon, which has gone up about 20 cents in the past 2 to 3 weeks. So it's popped up pretty quick. Takes forever to come down, but when they want to jack that price up, they'll get you. Okay. And looking at silver, let's take a look at silver real quick. Silver is at $18.06. It's down about 10 cents. I love silver. Anytime silver's under $20, that's a buy for me and a stack. So we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to touch on those 4 topics: hypocrisy, you're being lied to, debt, and the system. Stand by. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be right back.
By now the fighting will be close at hand.
Patriot Trading Group, we keep rocking and firing. We came back in with Mike and the Mechanics. You know, that song is truer now than it ever has been. It is amazing what is going on in this country. So I just want to start off with, there's 4 main topics that are going on in our country right now that are really taking everyone's eye off the ball. The first one is hypocrisy. Okay, hypocrite. You're a hypocrite, you know. So if you look at CHOP or Chaz or, you know, Chazakhstan, whatever they want to call it out there in Seattle. Okay, the first thing, you know, when Antifa is running down the street, you know, they're chanting, no border, no wall, no USA at all. And then they take over their little autonomous zone, their 7-block area. And the first thing they do, they build a wall. They build a wall. How about that? They want to abolish the police, but then when something happens, they get mad when the police don't show up to help them. Okay, they're guys with running around with guns inside of Chaz, that their own little security force. Well, they want to abolish the police, yet they have their own little police force going on there, who I say are not at all credentialed at all. They're just doing whatever they're doing. And you've got this Taz or Tiz or whatever his name is running around as the warlord. This is more like Somalia or Mogadishu or something than actually how is this happening in America? Okay, how is this happening? Why is it being allowed to take place in the United States of America inside of a city where a mayor allows this to happen and doesn't do anything about it? That should have been taken care of after day one. It should have been put to rest, because the problem is now you have all sorts of different people that want to come in and end it. Okay, whether it's Trump who says he wants to come in there and end it, or you have the bikers that want to come up there and go up there on July 4th and end it. I mean, the government is supposed to protect. What about the poor citizens that are living inside the autonomous zone, which is, you know, 7-block area that cannot run their businesses, or they're being extorted for protection money? Now, I thought that Antifa was supposed to be so holier than thou and all for the people, yet they are resorting to the same base criminal elements and human nature that you would see in some place that where there's anarchy. Okay, these are true anarchists. Now, what's interesting about anarchists, I'm going to put my political science hat on here again. An anarchist, you know, the little A sign, you know, that you see the kids with on their notebooks. I'm like, oh, anarchy sign, that's cool. Realize that 2 anarchists can't really hang out because they hate society and interaction. So you're here in school. Haven't you kind of sold out to the man? And then you hear them talking, you know, what they're going to do on the weekends. Yeah, we're going to go to the mall Friday night. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You said you're an anarchist. You're going to go to the mall and go support corporate America? Come on, man, you're selling out. So that's hypocrisy. Now, I get it from a kid that doesn't know anything, but adults, and some of these young adults that have not studied their history and learned history, Can we blame them that they're hypocritical? But if they do know better, I mean, it's sad that this is happening. Okay, so there was one instance where a guy gets shot in the Chaz zone or the CHOP, whatever you want to call it, and now he is suing the police department of Seattle for not coming in and taking care of it, the slow response time. Well, guess what? The police were stopped at the border of Chaz or Kazakhstan and were not let in to go deal with this guy. So the hypocrisy of this is so thick. Okay. And a lot of these things interact and overlap with each other. So we have hypocrisy, we have you're being lied to, we have the debt, and we have the system. The next thing, the hypocrisy is the debt in the United States. And I'm going to really go into that later with the debt clock. You know, the U.S. we're pushing a 24 trillion national debt right now. And that's going to probably bump up to about 30 trillion before we're all said and done with the way the Fed's just doling out money. Yet you and I, we're supposed to have our balanced budget every year. You know, we're supposed to be able not get crazy, waxed down on credit cards and all that stuff. And state governments are supposed to have balanced budgets. Yet the federal government, 30 trillion will be, you know, by all intents and purposes, going to be 30 trillion in debt before all this stimulus hits. Where is that money coming from? Where is it coming from? And then if you want to look at our national policy as a country, we have domestic policy, and then we have policy where we deal international policy. Okay, let's just take one case in point of Afghanistan, the real Chaz. Okay, Kazakhstan, Afghanistan. If you just look at one point that happened in Afghanistan, is opium production. That when the Taliban ran the show, and I'm not saying there's terrible oppressive people, yes, but they clamped down on opium production. We roll in there, and while the DEA is running around in Afghanistan trying to do drug eradication, we are also allowing them to grow it because we don't want we have growing the poppy and growing marijuana. I have a nephew that was over there in the special forces. He was walking by fields of marijuana, walking by fields of opium. We allow them to produce it because if we don't allow them to produce it, what are they going to grow? You're going to try to grow wheat and make money off that? It's not going to happen, not in that environment. Okay, so then they're growing this opium, and we're letting them do it because we know if we come in and cut it all down, they're going to get mad at us. And then that farmer by day is going to turn into the guy that's planting the bomb at night, just like we experienced in Vietnam, where by day you had the guy out in the rice paddy working in his fields, and at night he's got the VC pajamas on, making punji sticks and all that stuff and coming after you. So we have allowed this to happen. And that's just blatant, outright hypocrisy, ladies and gentlemen. It's hypocritical. And we're either a nation of laws or we aren't. Okay, let's move on to topic 2, which is you're being lied to. Okay, we're being lied to every day, and the problem is we're just taking it. We are taking it at face value. Some people are, most people are, because honestly, if you look at the alternative, you probably don't want to know what the truth is, and that's a shame for a majority of the people of this country that they don't want to know what the truth is. Now, as these idiots start getting closer and closer to where you live, the truth now is going to hit you in the face whether you like it or not. Okay? So you better be prepared to face the truth and face what may happen to you down the road. Now, let's just look at the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. Okay? Their food and transportation are taken out of the CPI, and that's one of the two things that are blowing up. Like, look at food prices. They're off the charts right now. It's not factored into inflation. Okay, what's the Fed want? 2% a year. 2%. After 5 years, that's 10% of less buying power your dollar has. Okay, all you have to do is go to the store. I use this example all the time in my classroom of the price of bacon. Your bacon used to be like $3-4 a pound. Now, $6-7 a pound. It's not that the bacon's gotten any better. It's the fact that it costs more Federal Reserve notes now to buy that same bacon because the Fed has devalued your money, so it takes more. And that's did you get a 2% raise? Are your investments creating a 2% return at least to keep up with inflation? Do you really trust that the government's giving you the correct figures? That's the key thing to think about. Look at that. Think about that. Then we can get into the virus. Okay, are we getting the correct information? Because the modeling out of England was completely off. Okay, John Hopkins went with that. Joe talks about Johnny Hopkins. That ended the college basketball season, and then everybody fell right in line. I have a son that played college lacrosse this year, and they played 4 games, and they cut their season out. And now that just threw a whole monkey wrench into the whole NCAA system of, or can seniors come back next year? And they can, to finish out their senior year in the spring sport. I mean, what a mess. But we're being lied to about do you wear a mask? Do masks work? Does the N95 mask work? Does the do-rag you throw over your face work? I mean, who is the mask for? Is the mask to protect me, or is the mask to protect you? Why is it 6 feet? Why is 5 foot 11 inches not safe, but 6 feet safe, or 6'1" is completely safe, or 12 feet is double safe? Where are these figures coming from? In my state of Maryland, it started off with no gatherings over 250 people. What science was that based off of? Where did you get that? Then it went down to no gatherings over 100. Then it went down to get no gatherings over 50, and then it went to no gatherings over 10. Why? Those are just arbitrary numbers. You're being lied to about that stuff. Where is the science that promotes that? I want to see it. Okay. And, where did the virus come from? What is the correct origin of the virus? Did it come out of that bioweapons lab in Wuhan? Did it come out of the wet market? No one's told us that. No one's told us any of that stuff. Okay. We've gotten lots of different conflicting reports. What is the true story on the virus? We'll never know, will we? Okay. Let's look at unemployment. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail when we get to the debt. Okay. What is the actual rate of unemployment right now? I mean, do we know? Because when this started out, a lot of the systems weren't capable of handling the amount of unemployment claims that were hitting each state. It was a mess as far as in Maryland, my state. The unemployment system crashed every day. It couldn't handle the amount of people that needed to get on there. So out of frustration, people just stopped trying to go on there, and they're unemployed yet they're not showing up on the numbers, the official numbers. And why would the government want you to know what the true numbers are anyway? Because it would lead to fear. If people, we're at Great Depression level unemployment rate. Okay. At the high point, I think it was in April. That's terrible. Okay, that is absolutely terrible. Then you could even move into false flag events. Okay, was this a false flag event? Is the deep state involved in this? Who knows? Okay, we're never really going to know the true origin of this. Some people say that this virus originated out of the University of North Carolina, and then the virus was sold over to China. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Okay, there's so much conflicting information. What the government, if they even know, if they were part of it, we're being lied to. Add into that the mainstream media or lamestream media, MSLSD, ABC, C, capital BS, you name it. What are they telling you? How are they filtering the news that you're going to get? Add in social media to that with the censorship on there of what opinion is considered worthy or not worthy. Are you violating community standards? Are you going to be able to survive on social media platforms if you're a conservative? Yeah, who knows? But look at just mainstream media. So if you were watching, just say you're watching a half-hour news hour program or a half-hour news show on, with the anchor person on, you're only going to get about maybe 22 minutes of actual news. And between that's going to be a human interest story. There's going to be a sports story, probably maybe a weather event, a current event, a happy event. You're going to get maybe 5 to 8 minutes of actual hard news. That's not enough to know anything. Then if you're on the 24-hour news cycle stations, they're just going to give the same rehash thing over and over and over again. They're going to have the banner at the bottom saying breaking news with the scary music to scare you. I mean, that is, we have worked ourselves up into a fear in this country. We're living in fear, unfortunately, and you should not live in fear. You need to maybe turn that news off and just go out and live your life. Go get some fresh air if you're allowed to be out in your backyard, if you're allowed to be out in your community without restrictions, because a lot of states now are trying to turn back on those restrictions. And I tell you what, the whole fool me once, fool me twice thing, people aren't going to be fooled twice on this lockdown stuff, okay? Americans are willing to give you the benefit of the doubt the first time if they trust what you're telling them. Michigan, how that governor, when she goes to be reelected, I don't know how she's going to make it, because she's pretty much made everyone mad up there, because apparently buying paint in a hardware store is somehow dangerous, or it's non-essential, and essential versus non-essential employees. Look how we've divided our country into who's essential and who's not essential. Look who's actually working. The people with college degrees are kind of sitting home online doing their Zoom meetings, and the guys that are actually turning wrenches and digging holes and that stuff, they're actually out there working. And who's more susceptible to getting disease. If I'm locked up in my house doing a Zoom meeting all day, I'm probably not going to get sick. But if that person that's out there working hard every day in the community, chances are they're going to be exposed to it. And that's tough. That is super tough. Okay. So we've got hypocrisy. We're being lied to. And now let's get into the debt. Wow. The Federal Reserve. So they want to get rid of Woodrow Wilson now because he's racist. Well, hey, why don't we get rid of Woodrow Wilson because he created the Federal Reserve and he got us into World War I? How about that? I mean, those are legitimate things. Yes, he was a racist. Okay. All right. So halftime, when we come back, we're going to tackle this debt issue, and then we're going to get into the system. Okay, is the system for or against you? Halftime on a Monday. We'll be right back. Patriot Radio News Hour. Stay with us.
This is the Phyllis Schlafly Report, presenting a daily conservative pro-family perspective since 1983 and continuing the legacy of Phyllis Schlafly. Now, here's the president of Phyllis Schlafly Eagles, Ed Martin.
I have breaking news from the American education establishment. They've officially declared that if you homeschool, you cannot give your children a meaningful education. Can you believe that? Harvard Magazine published an outrageous piece called The Risks of Homeschooling, and they used it to trash the legitimate educational choices made by millions of parents every year. The audacity of these educational elites never ceases to amaze. They honestly believe that they know how to raise our children better than we do. It's even more astounding that they would run an anti-homeschooling article in light of the COVID-19 crisis. When schools throughout the nation were suddenly forced to close to prevent the spread of the virus, the homeschoolers were the only ones who weren't thrown into chaos. I'm not saying everybody should homeschool in case we ever get another deadly global pandemic, but it sure seems like bad timing to roll out the same old tired arguments about our homeschool students not being socialized and supposedly unqualified parent-teachers. But this doesn't stop the broken record mouthpieces of the education establishment. They should be reevaluating what they can learn from home educators, but they'd rather take potshots. The Harvard article said, quote, "The issue is, do we think that parents should have 24/7, essentially authoritarian control over their children from ages 0 to 18? I think it's always dangerous to put powerful people in charge of the powerless and to give the powerful ones total authority," end quote. Did you get that? Could this author be more insulting to the family? The author sounds like an angst-ridden teenager complaining about how parents are dictators. For those of us dealing in the real world, we know children aren't capable of making informed decisions about their own care. That means someone has to be in charge of them. The establishment in education would like to paint the home as a terrible place so they can take control of your children, but we can't let them get away with it. The facts show time and again that the people most likely to look after the interests of a child are the child's parents. When you give the government, the schools, or anyone else final authority in parenting, the children always suffer.
Parents and grandparents jumpstart the education of that child you love so much with a proven phonics course. With Turbo Reader, anyone at any age can learn to read. For free information on Phyllis Schlafly's Turbo Reader, call toll-free 1-866-TRY-TURBO. Open the door to a lifetime of reading and self-motivation. Call 1-866-TRY-TURBO. Thanks for listening, and join us again for the Phyllis Schlafly Report.
And welcome back to the Patriot Radio News Hour. This is Glen Biddle, your substitute teacher, sitting in for Double J and Eric today, actually pretty much all week. So I've got the con, as they say in the military. So we were talking about four main topics that are happening in our country right now. The first one was hypocrisy. The second one is that you're being lied to. Third one that I see is debt. Okay, this debt is almost, well, it is unpayable. I mean, who thinks that it's going to get paid back? How's it going to, this whole virus thing and the way the Fed stepped in, the buyer of last resort. I mean, they're buying everything right now. They're buying everything but the kitchen sink, maybe they're buying the kitchen sink too, to try to shore up these markets. Where is that money coming from? It's being produced out of thin air in your name, by the way, which you have to pay back at interest. Okay, so that is a problem. That is a big problem. Now, I'm sitting here looking at the debt clock, and you can go online to it as well. It's usdebtclock.org, usdebtclock.org. This is an amazing website with tons of information on it. Actually, when you look at it, it's a blur of red and green numbers. And the first time you take a look at it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is insane. How do I figure this thing out? Well, it's very simple. You just divide it into squares, basically. You just draw a line down the middle, and then you draw a line across halfway. So you have 4 squares. And in each square, there's a lot of stuff going on. So if you want to if you're referencing it right now on the debt clock, if you go to the top left square, it's our U.S. national debt. And this is real time. So the numbers are moving. So right now we're at $26 trillion U.S. national debt. And then if we go over just a little bit, then this is how we get to that $26 trillion debt. Okay, so the total federal tax revenue right now is about $3.3 trillion. The problem is the U.S. federal spending is $6.2 trillion. So this year's deficit is $2.9 trillion. So we have to borrow that money to cover for that shortfall. Okay, and all of those yearly deficits add up over time to the U.S. national debt. That's how you get $26 trillion. Okay, if we go back to Andrew Jackson, my favorite president, and Jason's there in Colorado, he actually paid off the national debt by selling federal land. Okay, and he went to bed that night knowing that he had cleaned the slate on the debt, and that was a good place to be. And obviously wars and World War II was a huge jump in our debt, but we sold bonds. We were able to come back from that. Okay, then Vietnam kicked in. Then we had the war on poverty, which also kicked into the debt. And then now every president basically has doubled the debt in their term. And doubling this debt, I mean, everyone's projecting, Joe and Eric are thinking that's going to be $30 trillion before it's all said and done, and rather quickly, I might add. So the debt per taxpayer of this $26 trillion, the debt per taxpayer is $211,000. So if you have an extra $211,000, you can just kick that into the government, and that'll be your share of the debt. Or debt per citizen, which spreads it out a lot more, is about $80,000 a person. Okay, so that's the real ugly number. Then there's an even uglier number if we go down to the bottom of this, where it's called the unfunded liabilities. Okay, that's everything the government writes a check for. Okay, so that's Social Security, that's Medicare, all that stuff. Okay, that is a whopping $152 trillion, and your chunk of that, ladies and gentlemen, citizen, is $463,590 per citizen. Cut that check to the federal government. That's anything that the government writes a check for. Okay, so Social Security liability is $20 trillion. Medicare liability is $31 trillion. Okay, and then you lump everything else in, and you get $152 trillion. Is that payable? Do you think that gets paid back? How's that get paid back? How do people come up with $463,000 to pay that back? Doesn't work. The numbers just don't work, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we talked about unemployment a little while ago. So if you take a look at the right side of the debt clock, okay, if you look at the unemployment, okay, officially unemployed, it's showing at 23 million people. 23 million people unemployed in the United States. Okay, then actually unemployed. Okay, if you've ever gone to John Williams Shadow Stats website, okay, it's about 33 million. Okay, now if you look at full-time workers, we have 116 million full-time workers, and we have 20 million part-time workers. Now, if you look at actually manufacturing jobs, now we have 11 million manufacturing jobs. In 2000, we had 17 million manufacturing jobs, so we lost about 6 million jobs. Okay, where did those jobs go? Well, we know where they went. They went to the third world. Okay, they were outsourced. Okay, they're gone. They're not coming back. They're not coming back, ladies and gentlemen. Unless you pay somebody in the United States $30 to $40 an hour to do these jobs, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen at $10 or $15 an hour. It's not going to happen. Okay, those jobs are not coming back, no matter what the politicians want to tell you. That's that whole "you're being lied to" thing. You got lied to over NAFTA. Okay, except for Ross Perot. He was the only one that told the truth. That giant sucking sound. Okay, remember, you lift the hood, you look in the engine, that giant sucking sound. He was right, but no one wants to listen to him. Rand Paul. There are some very good people out there that are not lying to you, but they are marginalized, and they're being made to look like kooks. and that you're not supposed to trust them because they are not worthy of your time to listen to. But they are people that are spot on. Those are you need to listen to because they're not lying to you. Now, this debt, you're being lied to about the debt unless you go to the debt clock and see it for yourself. Okay? Send this to your local representative or your senator and say, what are you doing to fix this? They're not doing anything. They're kicking the can down the road. And like I said before, if you kick this can with your foot, you're going to break your foot. You're going to break your leg. It's going to shatter your tibia, your fib, whatever those bones are in your leg. They're going to be shattered to a million pieces. You try to kick this can. This can is not going to be able to be kicked. There's a reckoning at some point, ladies and gentlemen, on the debt. If we have to deal with this. How do you deal with it? Well, you either cut spending, or you reduce government programs, or you raise taxes, none of which get you reelected if you're a politician. So therefore, what do you do to your constituents? You lie to them. Point 2, you're being lied to. All right. So that's the debt clock. Take a look at it, usdebtclock.org. There's so many, and there are also state things you can go to and take a look at, state debts. So good to know. All right. So that's the U.S. debt clock. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is what I call the system. The system. Is the system treating you fairly? Or do you think the system works for you? Is it working for you? Is it working against you? That's a good question today because there are some people that are kind of untouchable, and there are some people that are getting pretty beat up by the system. Okay, people that think they're trying to do the right thing, but they're getting destroyed by the system. I'll give you one man's name in particular, General Michael Flynn. The deep state went after him because they didn't like what he was saying. His lawyers saying that he was going to audit the intelligence services and they didn't want their dark money or their black programs exposed. And so they had to get rid of him. He was also telling the truth about the Middle East. Things weren't going very well, and he knew. All right, we'll be right back. We'll finish up with the system, and then we'll move on to some political science terms. Patriot Radio News Hour. Stay with us. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the Patriot Radio News Hour. This is your substitute teacher, Glen Biddle, sitting in for Joe and Eric today. I'm going to be here all week. At the last segment, I'll tell you we're going to have a couple guests this week who you are no strangers to this show, and you'll enjoy them. So that's a tease, as they call it, and I'll talk about that in the last segment. So we've been talking about 4 major things that are going on in our country right now. Hypocrisy, you're being lied to, the debt, we just covered that in detail, and then so I'm going to finish up with the system, okay, the system, air quotes, the system. So if you don't want to be lied to, I don't like to pick and choose who I think is good out there as far as TV and radio personalities. Obviously, we are, but Tucker Carlson, if you just watch his monologue at night, he is knocking it out of the park, and he is equal in his assessment and criticism of both sides. Okay, he will give credit where it's due, but he will also lay blame where it is due, and both sides are guilty of being hypocritical, lying to you, allowing the debt, and participating in this so-called system that we're in, right? So if you don't watch his whole show, just watch the first 15 minutes. He is amazing. I can't believe they're even allowing him on the air right now with what he's saying, because it's the truth. And yes, his advertisers have gone out. If some of them left him, you know what? I don't care. I'll watch 3 minutes of My Pillow commercials on Fox News. I really don't care. Okay, that's his last advertiser. That's fine. Whatever. Okay, but let's get into the system. Okay, let's talk about the big one that's coming up: voting, the franchise, the right to vote. People who risk certain death to come to this country because they get the right to vote. You don't get to vote in some states, okay? Or excuse me, some states meaning countries, okay? You don't get to vote. In Iraq, you got to vote, but you got to vote for Saddam Hussein or some other guy that Saddam Hussein put up to let you vote for, and that guy would get maybe 2 or 3 votes, and then Saddam would get the rest, and that was a fair election. And that was good. And that guy was the luckiest man in the world, because Saddam could never kill that guy because he was the opposition candidate, right? So the system. So are we going to be allowed to vote in person this year, or will they use the virus as a scare to keep us from voting? Will it be mail-in ballots? And don't think for a second that those paper ballots, somebody will try to create duplicates, or a foreign country could create duplicates and flood our country with them. Certain states have eliminated the where you have to witness the signature of the person who's voting requirement. I mean, it's just ripe for fraud. That is a huge mess, absolutely mess. The federal courts, if you go on the Drudge Report today, the banner is a huge, huge decision. I'm not going to get into the topic. We don't talk about that topic a lot on this station. You can go there yourself, but that's a huge decision. Do 9 people in robes have the final say in this country because somebody can't get something through the legislature, so they sue all the way to the Supreme Court to try to get policy made that way? Or do we have activist judges on the Supreme Court? The whole process of getting a Supreme Court justice confirmed, you've seen that in the past 2 years of how cantankerous and what a mess that is to get somebody confirmed. It's a joke. Quite frankly, it's a shame. If I was nominated for Supreme Court justice, I would want to do it because they will go back and they'll make up stuff that we know that, or they will just find anything against you to try to discredit you, and then you're tainted for life. Okay, Lord knows what they have on Justice Roberts right now, the way he's voting. I mean, I honestly think that the Obamas have something on him that's causing him. I mean, he allowed Obamacare to exist, the whole DACA thing here last week. I mean, what a mess. So that's the system. Okay. And then let's talk about impeachment, Russia collusion, the dossier, General Flynn, the FBI, the system, the powerful, the deep state, the intelligence agencies. My daughter graduated from University of Maryland last year, and the main speaker was he was the head of Fort Meade, the NSA. Okay, and he's I forget his tip of my tongue right now. I forget his name, but he came up there and he said the first thing you should do, graduates, is that to always tell the truth. Well, here's the guy that lied in front of the Congress about that we're not collecting your metadata at the NSA. Completely lied about that. Okay, but graduates, don't lie. Don't do what I've done, but don't lie. Oh, by the way, I have my signed book out in the hallway if you'd like to get a book on your way out. Okay. Do we trust the system anymore? Does the system work for you? That's the big thing. Okay. You have to figure these things out, ladies and gentlemen. Are you willing to put up with hypocrisy? Are you willing to be lied to? Are you willing to deal with this debt? And are you willing to work within the system? And when the system doesn't work anymore, what's your alternative? Do you work outside of the system? That's kind of why we sell gold and silver, because when the fiat money doesn't work for you anymore, well, you've got the gold and silver that you can rely on outside of the, quote, air quotes, the system. All right. So now, when you see these Antifa people, and that's just a contradiction in terms as it is right now, when they run around and they want to call you a fascist, ask them point blank, what is a fascist? I guarantee you they don't know what it is. Well, you are one, okay, because that's what they're going to have, okay? So here's the definition of a fascist, okay? A fascist is a person that is probably into control. A fascist is a follower of a political philosophy characterized by authoritarian views and a strong central government and no tolerance for opposing opinions. Now, doesn't that kind of synonymous with Antifa? Oh, my gosh. And here's the thing. You got to know the origin of words. A fasces, the Roman symbol, is a bundle of sticks with a main pole going through it, and then it's wrapped up. So a one stick is weak. A bundle of sticks is strong. It can't be broken. Okay. If you look at the Lincoln Memorial, there are fasces on the Lincoln Memorial seat that Lincoln's sitting in. They are on the walls of Congress. The fasces symbol. It's on the back of the Mercury dime. A fasces symbol. Okay, strength out of many. It's how our country works. Okay, but here's what messes it all up: are these crackpot World War II dictators like Hitler and Mussolini that really went nuts on fascism. Okay, and fascists are anti-communist. So how can you be a member of Black Lives Matter, which are Marxists, and to be an anti-fascist? It does not work, ladies and gentlemen, because people don't know their history. All right, final segment coming up. We'll be right back. Patriot Radio News Hour. Stay tuned. We're going to get into some political terms. Final segment on a Monday. Patriot Radio News Hour. This is your substitute teacher, Glen Biddle, sitting in for Joe and Eric pretty much all week, except for Wednesday. I won't be in Wednesday, but other than that, I'm your guy. So we were talking about if you run into a an Antifa person who probably is a fascist, that they just don't realize it, and they call you a fascist, say, do you even know what the term means? They're not going to know what it means. They're just going to look at you and say, yeah, well, you are one, because you look like it, because you have a Trump hat, okay, or because you have a nice house and they don't, and they're jealous of you. What it boils down to. So then another word is that, and people don't know the origin of this word either, is dictator. Okay, so the definition of a dictator is a ruler with total power over a country, typically one who obtained it by control or force. And the synonyms would be autocrat, tyrant, despot, and oppressor. But yet people don't know the origin of the word. It wasn't always a bad word. Okay, you got to go back in time and know your history, right? So a dictator is a political leader who possesses absolute power. A dictatorship is a state ruled by one dictator or by a small clique. The word originated as the title of a magistrate in the Roman Republic appointed by the Senate to rule the Republic in times of emergency. One of the most famous dictators was Cincinnatus, who was a retired general, and he's out plowing his fields. The Senate comes to him and says, hey, we need you to go fight this war for us. So they give him dictatorial powers. He goes out, he fights the war, wins, comes back, turns back his power to the Senate, and goes back to his field and starts plowing again. That is a true dictator. Now, when I teach government to high school kids, I give them the definition of dictator and all that. I'm like, and then I throw the question at them. I was like, all right, would any of you like to live in a dictatorship? And I have the wait time, because you have to have wait time as a teacher, for them to think about the question and answer it. And then it's like, okay, who would want to live in a dictatorship? Nobody raises their hand. I'm like, why not? I'm like, come on, think outside of the box a little bit, They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, what if you were the dictator? It would be the best place in the world if you live in a dictatorship. If you're the dictator, not the guy in North Korea who's out there in the rice paddy that's skin and bones. You definitely don't want to live in that dictatorship. But if you're Kim Jong-un, okay, probably a pretty cool gig. Okay, you get to hang out with Dennis Rodman and drink Hennessy, and you're the only guy with internet access for all kind of weird stuff. Okay, but that's the dictator we don't want. And the problem is they're going to run around. They're going to say, Trump's a dictator, Trump's a fascist. They don't know what the words mean, ladies and gentlemen. They don't know their history. They just don't know. And that's a shame. For me as a teacher, it pains me. It hurts my feelings that they don't know their history. They're ripping down statues that they have no idea what they mean. The 54th Massachusetts Regiment, the Black Regiment that fought in the Civil War, there's a movie, Glory, with Denzel Washington, an awesome movie. They went up there and threw blood all over and tried to deface that monument because they have it's Civil War, slavery. They have no idea what they're doing, ladies and gentlemen. Sad. Okay, tearing down Christopher Columbus, Francis Scott Key, tearing down his statue. They're going to rename a bridge, Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, to the Freddie Gray Bridge. This was a guy, a heroin dealer who was accidentally killed by the police in Baltimore. That's going to be the bridge in Baltimore. I won't ride over that bridge if they do that. Okay, riots in Baltimore where the mayor said, "Give them room to destroy. Police, stand down." A Democrat city. It's the most dangerous city in America right now. 45 minutes from my front door. Okay, I have to worry about that happening to me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be here tomorrow. We have a guest, Shelby Gallagher from Prepping 2.0. She's awesome. So thanks for listening in today. Hope you learned something. We'll see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Patriot Radio News Hour.